Hi, I'm Susan from Well Peaceful and felt to talk about peace, which is my favourite subject. But first, I will meditate and just see what happens. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in calm, breathing out stress. Breathing in relaxation. Breathing out any tension throughout the entire body, just releasing it. Allow the energy to move through your body, out through your feet. This is called grounding. Breathe in, life force. Breathe out, joy. Breathe in, the rhythm. Breathe out, flow. Peace is to create a space. It's actually not in the thought process. Peace resides between each thought. Each thought is how we frame the world and create our reality. It's all coming from thought. I remember Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who was a neurologist, when she had a brain aneurysm, I believe, or a brain tumour. She said that she lost, I believe, the right side was where the problem was, and so her logical side. She struggled to think logically, like she gives an example in her TED talk of trying to dial the phone and having to try and match the numbers with the piece of paper where the number was written. It was actually a card, business card, and she was trying to ring her own number at work because she'd had this major brain tumour or aneurysm or whatever it was. And she said when she tried to talk, she thought that she was talking normally, but she was going woo in actual fact, and the person could hear her on the other end but didn't know what she was talking about. And she went into euphoric states of great expansiveness, she says, where she felt she could not be contained in the body. She was so enormous. She expressed that as this sort of oneness state. So once that logical linear state was, in a sense, shut down, she suddenly became the universe. And you will often hear those who have had experiences of awakening or maybe near-death experience. They will speak of this sense of either coming out of the body having no sense of sort of limitation. They become unlimited in this out-of-body experience. I've talked to people who have had these experiences. Some have told me they've met relatives on the other side or light beings. Dr. Raymond Moody, in his research, talked about many people describing meeting light beings, beings of light, if you like, moving down a tunnel. I met an Irish lady who told me that she had died temporarily and found herself moving at rapid speed through what she called a barrel. And she remembers seeing this young boy who she'd met in Lourdes in France. His face appeared and he had already passed over himself, and he was reassuring her, told her he loved her. All of them report, who have passed over and come back, that we are here to love each other. They lose their fear of death and they recognize that the purpose was to love. So they come back and do their lives differently, is what happens in actual fact. I know there's probably other stories out there probably aren't quite so rosy, but the ones I'm familiar with, people, have talked about, for example, passing over and finding themselves in a sort of a natural area that's got luminous grass. So everything is vibrating, everything is illuminated in a way that they can't describe. They say there's more colours, which are colours they've never seen before. Some people hear sounds they've never heard. Others will say that, when they go over, they hear a voice which says, do you want to stay or go back? And so they make a choice. And what this does is it reframes who we are, because we're all operating out of a sense of an identity of who we are. And we live that identity like it's an absolute truth. It's an unquestioned identity. And what often happens is that we divide ourselves on the basis of perceived identities. A person might be a plumber, another could be a prime minister, another could be a housewife, if you like, maybe a model or a house cleaner. Perhaps that person makes roads, they're a builder, building houses, building buildings. And all of these experiences formulate a view of who we are on the basis of how people treat us, on the basis of how we've been educated, what we think, our families, whether we've had positive experiences or negative experiences. That frames our self-esteem. And of course, the highest self-esteem is love, is peace. I know when I started to research this area, I had a paradigm shift. And I realised that, we were not who we thought we were. And in a sense, that kind of made me feel very excited, very happy, very joyful and hopeful that life actually goes on. And so I look out upon the world myself today and I see still the conflicts not resolved. Many, many people having all sorts of discord and distress through difficulties that I guess may not have been there had we thought differently. The understandings that I've had, given my 20 years of working on peace, this is not a new thing for me, it's something that's been a work in progress. And I recognise it as perhaps one of the hardest things to work on is peace, because we all have our various beliefs, we all get confronted at times, we meet with people who are very different from ourselves. And are we able to be genuine with those people as we would someone that we relate to? For me, the work in peace has probably been the most wonderful work, and it has sustained me. It is what makes me sustainable and resilient. I can survive anything, and I know it. I find that, moving into that space of peace means you have to be incredibly honest. It means you have to allow life to turn up as it turns up and greet it with a sense of curiosity and welcoming, in a sense, including your own thoughts, no matter what they are. It's self-acceptance, ultimately, is what peace is teaching me. Some of the pearls of wisdom, I guess, I want to share that have helped me to see everyone as a teacher. I have no enemies at all, not one. That doesn't mean there aren't people who perhaps disliked me. I have no say over how others perceive me. But where I have my own power is how I perceive others. And for me, there is no enemy. There is no one that is doing anything they shouldn't be doing, in the sense that each life has to live out its experience. Now, what I'm expressing here is a higher order of what peace really is. It's not a lofty notion or an idealism that, oh, well, it's all good, make peace, dancing around, which I'm all for anyway. I'm all for dancing. But the real peace is really allowing yourself to be who you are and loving yourself for whom you are. It's not about vanity, it's about self-acceptance. And you'll find that most people throughout their lives are actually in resistance to who they are. Whenever we feel tense, we're actually having fear happening. That's our inner resistance to some thought that's going on within us. Now, no one causes your thought. You have the thought you have, and your body responds. When I was doing the clowning in the hospitals, and also teams of clown doctors were doing it, we did it because we were creating spaces of non-resistance. As clowns, we learn to dance with everybody, and you can't be in any state of judgment whatsoever when you're in a state of service like this. When you feel absolute love for everyone, you're actually dancing with them in a way that serves the harmony. You're not forcing anything. You're not trying to make them happy. You're just being happy and you're sharing it. And often that very much catches with other people. They hear your laughter. They see the smiling eyes, and they can feel the energy that you're generating, and it's contagious. People start laughing and playing, and it is incredibly peaceful. And that's why I called myself Peaceful, the clown. And if I'm having the opportunity to communicate to audiences, I will be a fool for peace, because that's the jester, which is the archetype which I really love. And in a sense, that archetype was something I really discovered. I realized it was my life expressing. I didn't really choose to be a jester. It just came about. I think I found the hat. That was what started that, actually. I found the hat at Victoria Markets. It was a jester's hat, and then I realized I was a jester. It's been like that for me. When I became a peace clown, someone in Russia gave me a peace symbol, and then I became a peace clown. I do remember being at a university and clowning there, and I remember recognizing that I was a peace clown. It was, in a sense, the starting point of being this clown for peace. I have considered acting perhaps in other ways, in other characters, but I found that I'm not able to. I could do it if I really wanted to, but I don't want to. It's fine. I found that the clown was all I wanted to be. I didn't really want to change costumes because it felt closest to my true sense of my expression, if you like. I'm sort of not using the word identity deliberately here. It's an expression. So going back to roles and identities, this is what often divides us, is one person thinks they're this and the others are that. And we can judge that other on the basis of how they look, whether they're, in a position of seniority, whether they're a child, whether they're in poverty, whatever it is, whatever characteristic you're observing, we can tend to divide along those lines. From a peace perspective, I see everybody playing a role. And so I don't see their role as their identity. When people let their guard down, so as I'm a clown and I'm interacting, the guard comes down, then I see them. And that's what I know is the true self. And it's the most beautiful expression. That's why I loved being a clown. So turning to interpersonal relationships. When anybody gets upset by what someone says in a relationship, it means that something within them is unhealed. You know that because you're contracting within yourself. But what we ordinarily will do is we'll look at the other and we'll say, you have made me feel upset. Rather than, what is it within me that's feeling upset? Where is it that I'm feeling threatened? Do I feel powerless? And at the heart of all conflict, in truth, is powerlessness. And even those people who are bullying or projecting negative behaviours are typically the most frightened. And that's why they put up a facade, they put up a bravado, because they feel threatened, they feel fearful, they actually feel vulnerable. It's typically the opposite to what you would imagine. Sometimes people think the bully is very tough and very strong, but they're not. It's a mask that they wear in order to protect themselves. You'll find if you were to see into them, you would note that they may feel deeply inadequate. They could be very immature in that they haven't handled enough situations in order to know they can overcome them. They may not have examined their thinking and just believed every thought. They may have a narrative they picked up from their family, and that's how they would communicate. They might react rather than respond. They may shout rather than listen. But always they're shouting at themselves, thinking it's the other they're shouting at. Whenever we're angry, it's a call for help. We're angry because we really feel someone has hurt us and we've projected it out. We may not find it easy to cry, to really get those feelings out. I think for men it's much harder because of the way that men have been socialised. I think their road is much harder than women, in that their fathers have often shut them down. Their fathers have taught them that to express is weakness. In many respects, I feel very fortunate being raised a girl and become a woman. It's enabled me to express all my feelings, which is the real beauty and bounty of humanity, is to feel everything. Some people are very afraid of feeling things, so they will suppress or they will block those natural feelings. And I suspect a lot of people do it. Certainly in my experience, I've seen a lot of suppression. In some of the workplaces that I worked in, and I've worked in hundreds, people were taking antidepressants in order to not feel. I've never taken antidepressants myself, ever. I don't take any drugs whatsoever. I feel everything because I trust that my body sends me signals that I need to listen to. I very seldom drink. Occasionally I'll socially drink, but very seldom. I don't need it because I'm not trying to feel good. I already, for the most part, feel good. And when I don't feel good, I accept that that's the way I'm feeling at this time. And for me in that moment, it's true. Then I examine, what was that discord? What was that powerlessness? What was the fear that I was feeling? But I never, in my heart and soul, blame the world, because the world is living out its experience. And whilst I may not, resonate with what others do, I've come to understand that people do the best they can. And it's not for me to judge anybody. I mean, I can have observations. I can make suggestions. But at the end of the day, I don't want to cause any sorrow in other people. I think I probably would be more akin to that idea of turn the other cheek. I would rather feel the pain than project it to someone else. I would rather write uplifting poetry than write an unkind letter. I would rather strive to see the other side and try and explain my truth in my own way than tell someone they have to do something to make me happy. I don't believe anybody owes me anything, and no one is responsible for my happiness. Their actions may well create an environment where I may feel sad, but ultimately each of us has to choose. We're ultimately all responsible for our happiness. I feel a deep sense of gratitude for having the privilege of spending my life in this way, where every day I am working on peace. And I feel enormous happiness when I go out into, say, a village or a little town, and I go and meet the people. And it's really nice because I walk into shops and I've got friends. I make friends with everybody. It's great, and I love them, Talk to them. We have great discussions. They share everything with me. I'm just amazed at the trust that has been, in a sense, given to me because I've come in and chatted. And I talk about everything. I'm very open. I'm very sort of fearless in that way. I will just start talking. Or I might sit quietly in a coffee shop and do some work, because I love to sit and read, and I love to study. I love to learn. To me, sitting with a coffee and something interesting to read and examine is, for me, I guess, my heaven on earth. I really love it. I love the freedom of moving around as I choose. I feel incredibly blessed that I seem to always have a place to live. I have no income. I am allowing my life to unfold. I am trusting that what happens is meant to happen. I'm meant to be where I am. And there's a sense of excitement on that edge, because you never know what's going to happen. It's a lot akin to, in a sense, the fall stepping off the cliff into thin air. My life is like that. I can step off that cliff and I know something comes. Always. I mean, my brother, he talks to me from time to time and he just can't believe how my life is, houses. I get houses. I get places to stay. My car keeps going. And I'm making some stands in respect of principle, which is why I have no income at all. I have, in a sense, a faith that I have enough. And there's a wealth within that. I feel incredibly peaceful, yet others might look at my life and say, that looks really insecure. How can you live a life like that? But I remember when I traveled the world, I literally stepped out and I had enough money to get around the world, in the sense of I had money for food. I didn't have money for accommodation, not much. And yet I was able to travel for 6 months. People opened up their homes and allowed me to stay for free in 20 countries. And it was very much like free falling. I just allowed life to carry me, and it really felt like that. I had the words of Byron Katie and Eckhart Tolle circulating. I was focusing very closely on that. And of course, she talks about loving what is. She talks about reality as the moment. She explains that whatever comes is meant to happen. And I really resonate with her. I'm just trying to find the right words, because it's not a philosophy. She actually lives it. It's a reality. She was approached. I remember she wrote about this in Los Angeles. She was approached by some guy. She was actually talking to gangs. And a guy came up and he put a gun in her side. And he goes, I have to shoot you. And he pulled back the trigger. And Byron Katie is in a state of unconditional love. She's in a state of bliss, actually. She has absolutely no fear, none. And she just waits. She said, I just waited, looked at the clouds floating overhead and thinking how beautiful. She wasn't going to miss a moment of reality, she said. And she said to him, don't do it. And then she explains the reason she said that is not because it was about her. It was really about him, because she knew if he shot her, he would suffer guilt, because he had such a strong identification with his ego. She would be in a state of what would be called, probably closest to the words of no mind, or the I don't know mind, she calls it. What that means is she doesn't presume she knows anything. She's created within herself not only a stillness but an emptiness. And you'll find spiritual teachers over time have talked about the spaciousness they created within. It's complete peace. They often speak of it as they let life live them. The breath is really just the breathing in and out of life. It's life force. So when people are meditating, they're going into this I don't know mind. They're becoming still. And they're working with higher vibration, would be the way they would call it, or consciousness. They start to lose themselves. They lose that sense of self. It just blends in. And anyone who closes their eyes, if you close your eyes now while I'm talking, just close your eyes. You can feel the expanse around you. But what is the you that feels the expanse? Can you feel the stillness, or is your mind wanting to think? They call this presence. It's being present. When you drift off in your mind, you're actually not present. The thing that children need is presence. They need to feel your presence. They need to feel your attention. Not as a fabricated attention, but a real attention, where you're really with them. Partners would need that too, to feel that you're really hearing them. Any family member, any friend, when you're with them, be with them. Don't plug your earphones in. Don't type. Don't twitch. Just be present. Can you feel the presence when you become still? This is living deeply from moment to moment. This is the peace that passeth all understanding, is complete presence. Where there's no future, there's no past. The moment of now is the reality. But you can lose that sense of reality when you're planning ahead or reflecting back. The present moment work is really about peace, which is to be in the present moment, because you will not feel stress when you're in the present moment, you see. We get discord when we're thinking about something that's happened. And I'm still working on this myself. I'm certainly no great guru around this stuff. I still get upset about things and feel my traumas from things that have happened. It tends to accumulate in the body, I think. However, I'm working on it. I'm working on the moment of now as all that's real. And it's from these moments that we create wonderful things. A lot of the conflict, if not all conflict, is due to a story that's been created and has been believed as truth, even though that past event is over. We then project onto a future that hasn't even been created. The truth is we can't know the future. We can only know the present moment. So there's a lot of people, if not billions of people around the world, engaged in stories that are not true. The only thing that's true is right now. And right now is reality, as I said. So Byron Katie travels the world and she gives talks and she asks questions. And I think of Socratic dialogue. I think about the power of the question and how it opens up to infinite possibilities when we ask a question. And she talks about the work. When she had her awakening experience, she said that the work awakened inside her. Now, all it is 5 questions and what she calls turnarounds. So I think I've used this one before, but I was going to say the world is going to collapse, but I think I'll use another analogy. Let me think. Corporations are corrupt. Let's use that one because a lot of people would agree with that. Is it true that corporations are corrupt? And you'd answer yes or no. Now, most people will say yes, they believe corporations are corrupt. Second question is, can you be absolutely sure that corporations are corrupt? Can you be 100% sure? People go, well, no, I can't be 100% sure. There are some out there that are corrupt, right? So this starts you thinking. Third question. How do you feel, how do you react when you believe the thought that corporations are corrupt? Well, I feel disappointed. I feel a loss of trust. I feel sad. I feel powerless. I lose faith in my fellow man. When I feel that corporations are corrupt, I feel that we have no say. I feel people don't have ethics, can't be trusted. they're greedy. So these are all the thoughts. So what do you think, how do you feel when you believe the thought that all corporations are corrupt? So those were the thoughts. Then the fourth question is, who would you be without the thought? So if I was to look at a corporation without the thought that all corporations are corrupt, what would I see? I would see people engaged in activities within that corporation, just moving around doing their thing. I see them producing products. I see them on the phone. Okay, so that's looking at corporations without a story. And then Byron Katie talks about the turnarounds, which is to turn it right around. Corporations are corrupt, turns around to its opposite. Corporations are not corrupt. Give me 3 reasons why they're not. So you would think of corporations who just, like I think of Virgin straight away. Virgin, I think, okay, yeah, Richard Branson, not corrupt. I might think of George Soros, actually, and the Open Society Institute. He's not corrupt. I might, think of a research company I worked in that wasn't corrupt. So that's 3 reasons. Okay, that's interesting. I am corrupt, could turn it around. So you're turning it around and around. The idea is to try these things on as a thought experiment. So all corporations are corrupt turns around to all corporations are not corrupt. I am corrupt when I think of corporations would be the corruption within me is seeing that. See? I'm just having a think about it. So corporations are not corrupt. So what it does, the work, is it gets you to examine what in you is projecting onto that other. And it's called inquiry, this, and you can do it with anything. You might have a perception of someone that you don't like at work, and you might say, oh, they're selfish. Is it true? Can you be absolutely sure that it's true? How do you feel, how do you react when you believe the thought they're selfish? I believe they're this, they're that, and then we start to demonize them. Who would I be without the thought if I dropped it and just looked at them? Well, they're just a person doing what they're doing. Then we turn it around. I'm selfish. They're not selfish. And you give 3 reasons. And what it is a form of meditation where you are trying on, you're turning it around and turning it around, because all negativity is projection. All of it. Not some of it, all of it. And it's so tempting. It's so tempting to look upon the world and criticize it. It's very tempting. We get very upset, But the world is where it's at. And yes, that doesn't mean that people don't do unkind things. They do. But can we still look at those others with a feeling of unconditional love? Can we just look at them and say, okay, that's what they're believing. Is that who they are? No, it's not. They're beyond their thoughts. The true being, the true human, even if you looked at that human being in the womb and they're birthed, they're not coming out with language and ideas and concepts. They're coming into the world. Can you imagine, as this absolutely brand new baby? And it can't even see. Your baby can't even see. But it feels everything. It feels everything. When that baby was in the womb, it felt its mother's thoughts. It felt her moods. It felt her emotions. It even felt those around the mother. Can you believe? That child was taking in and absorbing everything. And many people don't realize just how incredible babies are. So they come into the world and they're feeling everything, and they cry because they're getting their needs, because they've got no filters, you see. They're just crying as they feel. They feel everything and they react straight away. There's no thought going on. This is a baby in its full emotional experience before it has the command of language. And yet it's absorbing, as part of its life experience, everything. And that's the human being without its story, you see, when the baby first emerges. And then slowly, it's picking up on all the negative energy, the fear. It's coming into a very fearful world. It's not coming into a world that's at peace. It's coming into a world that's full of anxiety. That poor little baby starts to absorb all this fear. And as it gets older and it starts to waddle around, a little toddler, it starts to mimic the adults that are around it. In absolute detail, it mimics everything. Whatever you say and do, that baby picks up. It's a sponge. And that is the creation of humanity. That is the point of humanity creating itself through those webs of relationships happening around that child. And there's many webs of relationships that are happening, because the child is not limited to its physical, it's actually emanating out. A lot like this candle, actually. Let me just see if I can create an effect. This would be like I'm going to move it around. This is like all the energy around that child. See, it almost looks like electromagnetic energy, doesn't it? But that is the thought forms that would be around the child that it's absorbing. See, all this energy moving through. That's why I could never dislike anyone, because I know that they are a product of their experiences and they're innocent in that. Even the most heinous criminal, in my mind, is innocent. Now, people would say, how could you say that? This person's, personification of. The person's ignorant. If they knew what they were doing, they wouldn't do it. And I know that. When you know, you would never harm another, ever, because you see yourself in the other. And that's not some sort of delusional state. That is, I see my humanity in you. I'll give an example. I was talking to my brother today, and he was talking about some issues he's had and with people. And I said, try and see it as they're an aspect of yourself. Have you not been selfish sometimes? Have you not been angry at other times? Have you not been unfair? Of course you have. So, okay, that person's showing up in that way. Imagine that person's just simply an aspect of yourself. You recognize it in the other because it's in you. If you didn't have it in you, you could not see it in the other, you see. That's why things are mirrors. We are mirroring from one another. But then we mask ourselves so people can't see. We're hiding from the world because we're afraid if they see us, they may reject us or hurt us in some way because we haven't accepted ourselves. And that's how it works. Once you accept yourself, you're not going to care what people think. If they see you, like when I cried in my other video, I don't mind that. I'm very happy to share that because that is my truth. That is my humanity expressing in a world that's too afraid to share its truth. It's not giving permission to the world to cry, to feel, to be vulnerable. And in my work as a peacemaker, I'm giving everyone permission to be vulnerable, to say it as it is, and to, allow those emotions to move through us because they have to be expressed fully. If you suppress any emotion, it actually turns inward and it can become a distortion within you. That's why The healthiest people are the ones who express everything. Get that blocked energy, unblock it. And you can unblock it through getting really angry, shake that energy out, but don't let it sit trapped within you. Eventually it will come out, and they call that unintegrated emotions. Some of the breathwork practitioners talk about the importance of breathing. So when I do a bit of meditation, that's really just to get you used to the idea of breathing, because most people won't take the time to be still. But the breath work is breathe in, breathe out. So you breathe in faster, actually. That would be the speed of it. Now, what it does is it actually unlocks pain within you. Everybody's carrying pain. It's not just myself. Everyone is carrying it. Most people hold it in, but it has to come out. See, disease will manifest in the body if you hold your pain inside. There's a wonderful saying that I heard years ago, which was, the love you withhold is the pain you carry. The love you withhold is the pain you carry. That's why people's faces are so, covered. I saw a woman just yesterday, and I saw her face was unhappy, and I could feel her pain was caught inside her. She wasn't able to express her truth. And rather than say, oh, she looks sour, I looked at her with love and compassion, and I could see that she was in pain. And I thought I must be more sensitive to people. Never judge anybody, because you don't know, unless you've walked in their shoes, what their life has been like. I'm a great believer on erring on the side of compassion, always. So I spoke to you before about Byron Katie and the work, and how she looks out on the world without a story. There is no enemy. There is no them and us. There are only unquestioned thoughts. And I've said this before in the videos. That's come from Byron Katie, and she's right. There are only unquestioned thinking. If truth is peace, which in my worldview it certainly is, if you're not at peace, you're not in the truth. And that's not to say if you cry or you get upset or you have a moment, that's all part of the human condition, of course. But all this is really saying is that when we come into alignment with ourselves, we will feel peace. And it's understanding that there's nothing to fear, that fear is false evidence appearing real. And peace is the allowance. I see things come and go. That's my way of living in allowance. Allow it to come, allow it to go. No resistance. I've actually lived a life of non-attachment for the most part, where I've moved houses like hundreds and hundreds of times. I've moved a lot. And people have come and gone out of my life very quickly, or I've had some stay for a long time as well. But I'm very used to people coming in and out. I talk to people all the time. So I may be with them momentarily, just for 5 minutes. I have a nice conversation, we have a laugh, and then I move on. And that's the flow that I typically live in. I have my moments, of course, as I'm still human, but I live in a flow. And the flow is non-resistance. It's just, when you have a life like mine where you're moving all the time and you have no idea if money's going to come or, where you'll end up, if you get good at it like I have, I got pretty good at it, what you do is you just trust. And I've found, certainly where I'm at today, is that I'm quite grounded in, I can be anywhere now and feel at home. I'm getting less insecure. I don't feel insecure actually at all. That's why I'm testing my life in this way, in order to lose all insecurity. I'm losing all attachment. I'm losing fear. I'm not afraid of aloneness at all. I love it. People might say, oh, how sad, she's on her own. I'm not on my own. I feel complete. You know, I sort of marvel at the world that it has such strong needs now. Whereas I feel enormous joy. You know, of course I have my moments, but for the most part, I feel this incredible joy. And it's freedom. And we all talk about freedom, but it really is freedom that I experience. I literally make it up every day. I have no boundaries in the sense of, limitlessness. In that sense. I certainly have, social boundaries and personal boundaries and things like that, but there's no limit. It's an unlimited life. And I get amazed by how life unfolds. So I'm living in the flow of life, which I experience as consciousness. And it sends to me an intense sense of security. I feel safe. I walk around and I don't feel any fear at all. I don't watch television. Occasionally, I might tap into the news if I'm somewhere and there's a television on. But I'm not filling my mind with fear. I don't watch negative movies. I only read uplifting books. And that's probably why I'm appearing a bit different sometimes to people, because I'm really not sharing that same, could call it like if you're moving from radio station to radio station, I'm no longer sharing that bandwidth. I've moved to another one, and it's incredibly peaceful. Wherever I go, I'm finding that it's very peaceful around me. And that's because the peace within me is expanding. Even with the momentary discords that I experience, the peace within me is expanding. And as I said in the beginning of the video, I've been working on peace for 20 years now. And it's a massive subject area, and it takes a long time to recalibrate yourself in respect of your thoughts and your values to align with a life rhythm which is completely peaceful. The natural world is unconditional love. All I'm doing is returning to my true nature. So I'm dropping the stories that have been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. I'm dropping the story. I no longer see that as who I am. I'm fully in acceptance that others may see it that way, and I respect that that's their journey. But because my purpose is to know and become fully peaceful, I will drop those stories, because the true nature of the human being actually lives in the moment and expands. I'm sort of looking for I can feel the word story there, because we never really leave the story. So I'm not going to drop the word story entirely. I'll just say that it's a different story. It's a story of non-resistance. It's a story of loving what is. It's a story of loving yourself and loving others. It's a story of fearlessness. It's a story of a new earth. It's a story that we will be moving into in the future. Once we tire of the story we've been living in, if it's not serving us. If it's serving us, you live your story. That's fine. If you're not happy in the story, you can change your story. And you can recline back like the Buddha. Make peace with everyone around you. Send them love and peace and goodwill and good fortune. May they all be happy, because when they are, a new story will emerge on the planet that will just completely change everything. The true transformation of the planet is not in things that we create. It's actually in the reformation of who we really are. That is the true innovation of humanity. It's literally an inside job. And some can think that doesn't look very exciting when we're engaged in mental activity. But once you start to turn inward like this, there is infinite possibilities which actually create what you see outside yourself. We're incredibly powerful, each and every one of us. Every single human being on this planet is equal, and they are of equal value and sovereign. And I send that sense of peace to everybody, that you are exactly where you need to be, and life is out to do you good, despite how it might seem. So be in a state of gratitude for everything that is coming your way. Look for the lesson in it, and if you can, be the presence of love as you go through it. All right, that's my message tonight. I send you enormous peace as your happy destiny unavoidable. Know that you are the peace beyond all that passeth, all understanding. Be at peace. You are worthy, every single one of you. Much love. Bye.